And we are live. Hi, everybody. Barry McGuire here for Barry McGuire's Creative Real Estate Education Group. We meet every Monday, except for the last month when we didn't meet because we were taking the month of August off and a little bit of September. But we show up 5 p.m. Mountain and we talk about all things creative real estate. Lots of experts on to give us a hand: insurance guys, appraiser guys, developer guys, foreclosure lawyers, accountants, you name it, we have them. And so that's what we do. And today we are going to not talk about upcoming focus workshops because we don't have any planned at the moment. Did 3 already this year. So we're not going to talk about that. We are going to do a catch up with our focus team on just what's been happening both in their lives and in their portfolios, their investment lives, personally, and what they've been observing for what's going on in the marketplace. And so we're going to hear from them. And with that, no further ado, we're going to bring in Dean Manti and Neil Taniguchi, and I think Wayne Hillier is lurking in the background as he is wont to do. And there he is.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Wayne.
How you doing?
Good. All well. So did you guys see Donna's post about us harvesting 75, I'll just say it again, 75 pounds of grapes from our little backyard grapevine? Unbelievable.
Crazy.
We turned it all into grape juice, and we've made a ton of grape jelly and more in the freezer to make more later. So it's been a great gardening year. We had a great corn crop, great pumpkins. Carrots were crap. Tomatoes were okay. Raspberries were great. Any of you guys garden, or am I the only one in the crowd here? I'm the one. Well, that's good. Then I can make you jam and you'll still like it. You don't say berries. Mine's better. All right, let's talk about it. I'm very excited to be here. It seems like forever when it's been a month and a bit, but it seems like forever. Dean, I heard you say to Donna, it's been a crazy summer for you. I mean, you and your sweetie pie went off traveling, had a really wonderful trip to Europe. I remember you telling me about it. We were sitting in Toronto, I think, and you were giving me the itinerary, and I couldn't believe the great places you were going to be and the wonderful spots you were going to stay in. So maybe you could tell us a highlight about that trip. If nobody else minds, I'm in awe of that trip. I want to hear a highlight about the trip, and then we can move into Dean's investing summer and observations.
Yeah, geez. France seems like a lifetime ago, to be honest, Barry. It's been such a whirlwind here of a year already, but yeah, we rented a car, which we hadn't done previously in Europe. Normally we do just transit. And so we started in Paris and we stayed in, going back now, right next to the Palace of Versailles. We stayed there to start. Then we drove through over to the Champagne region. And we went and hit a bunch of champagneries, I guess you would call them.
Sure.
And one of the highlights for both of us, we had a friend that passed away of brain cancer, and we used to bring her a bottle of Dom Perignon when she would get a negative result. So we went to Moet and Shannon and, toasted to her, and away we went. So, and then we carried on to Switzerland, which was beautiful. Yeah. Expensive, never been in such an expensive place, but beautiful. Carried back down into France. We went into the red wine and I guess red and white wine regions. Went into French Riviera. Went into Monaco, which is probably the other highlight for me. Monaco was amazing. Mm-hmm. Second smallest country in the world. Can you guess what the first one is, Barry? The smallest country in the world?
The Vatican.
You are correct, sir. You are correct. And then we went back to Marseille, caught a puddle hopper back to Paris, and then flew home. And that was all over the course of 2.5 weeks. And we left our kids at home, and yeah, and then my daughter went off to college in Kelowna this last weekend, so she's
Right.
left the nest, and we sold our house last night, and we're moving.
Oh, wow.
And
Holy crap. We need a program
yeah.
to devote. We need a program just to devote to the Manti family adventures here.
Yeah, so it's been a whirlwind, we'll say,
Yeah.
but it's good. We've gotten some. I wish that we actually had an event coming up, because I have a bit of a teaser story for my most recent deal that I picked up that I just basically was able to get in the way of, if you want to say that.
Yeah.
And we were able to save a couple's credit from foreclosure, and the house needed nothing. I got it last week. I had my painter come in and just touch up some walls. We did a deep clean. Imagine this, Barry, just by having the skills, a lot of which were taught by you, I was able to get in the way of a deal that will make me 6 figures. And I bought it last week, and I put it on the market this week.
You know, I just love hearing about that. I love hearing about it because folks have a hard time believing it happens. I actually avoid trying to tell stories like this because they're so unbelievable that I think they don't sit well with some people. If it sounds too good to be true, it must be. But that is so not the case in the creative end of real estate. And maybe before we get on to other things, so that is such an amazing story. Let's talk to Neil and to Wayne and see whether they've had any similar experience. It doesn't have to be a 6-figure number in 10 days. I mean, because that's too much. Maybe it isn't. Neil, what's been going on in your investment life? And have you had anything at all in the people won't believe this, but it's true category?
Well, I don't know about the unbelievable category. Some of it's not 6 figures in 10 days. So,
that's okay. That's all right.
I had posted it on the creative I think in just the success group or one of the other groups, anyways, one of your groups, about a house that we found in double foreclosure. So it had a first mortgage with RFA, who took over for Street Cap, and it had a second mortgage on it for Home Trust, which was a secured Visa line of credit. And both were in foreclosure. And the short version is we brought the first current in August and left the second in foreclosure. And I now have, if today is Monday, I have until Friday to bring it current. But it's at such a low rate that we just let it sit there and collect the per diem interest, because all the big funds have gone against it.
Sure.
So we will bring that one current. We made her a fair offer on it. It's one of those things that you never know where leads come from. It was someone that I met back when the Fort McMurray fires happened. Mm-hmm. There was a fairly large contingent of volunteers here in Airdrie, and I was one of them, and this particular individual was one of them as well, and we became Facebook friends. And a year or two ago, they had reached out saying, might be selling my house. Okay, let me know. And then they said, no, I think I'm okay. Then they called, and where it got a little sticky was we thought we had till September, and then I got the sheaf of docs with the 2 sets of papers and the summary order for both of them had their judicial sale listing order, right? They had the redemption period, the 6 months. We've talked about that in some of the courses. And it turned out it was August, and we had like virtually no time to scramble and get that done. So we scrambled, got it done, took the house out of foreclosure. She's leaving behind somewhere around $145,000 of equity. So this particular individual had equity in the deal. They had just run into some times where their world changed, and there just wasn't the ability to make the payments anymore. So, but doesn't want all the money because doesn't want the money to go away. So happy to leave it there. I get interest free until I think it says the end of February. And then after consulting with her lawyer, he said you need to have an end date on when you pay that out. So we've put on there that the full amount will be paid by the end of October. That said, we can always make another arrangement from there if she doesn't need the money, right? So that was kind of neat. That really we didn't need we needed some money to bring it current, but we didn't need a ton. And the house is maybe $15,000 to $20,000 tough. It's just lipstick.
Yeah.
And we'll put it out on rent to own. We've already started. We just ran a teaser ad on our Peak Housing Facebook page, and we've had inquiries because, again, anytime the rental market gets tight, like it's been here for the last 18 months,
Yeah.
People who are looking for options start looking at darn near any options for other options. So rent to own traffic goes up. Even when we don't have a property available, we haven't had a property available in quite a while. All of a sudden on that particular house, I'm just watching that one post. And you know how they say, if you have a page for your business, rarely do you get any traffic that goes to it. I have no idea how people are finding that post, but they're finding it. And we're getting inquiries from our Facebook company page. I'm like, okay, like we didn't spend any money on sponsor or anything like that. So
No.
we'll probably have that house ready to go this month, touch wood.
Wow.
And then we'll really start dialing up unless we find someone in the meantime who has the criteria to qualify. And for those of you who are longtime watchers, you know that I've been banging that drum for years about, you have to do property first in Alberta because we just haven't had the appreciation. Well, we think that ARV on this property is today $485. And so we're going to put it out on a modest 5% increase at $509 for a 1-year contract.
Well, this is another really interesting story. And for this homeowner, what have they made other efforts to get themselves out of trouble? I mean, with all that equity, it would seem that they should have a bit more room to do something. But what had they tried to do to?
My understanding is not a whole lot. There was family that had moved in that was supposed to help, pay a little bit of rent, help with utilities, and that went sideways completely.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate because that damages family relations.
Yep.
And I think from listening that the major source of income went away. So the part-time job wasn't enough to support a refinance, or I don't know if they tried to get a third, one of those jingle mortgages on the radio at a nasty rate.
Yeah.
But it also dovetails with some thoughts about retiring and buying a camper van and going, traveling North America with that. So, perhaps it may have been there wasn't, from my understanding, there wasn't a ton of effort, mainly because A, didn't think it was possible, and B, it may have just forced the timing on when to go travel type of thing.
Yes.
Right. So,
well, it's another amazing story. My goodness. And Wayne, you're in the hot seat, man. It's going to be hard to top these two stories. My goodness. But I know you're out there. I know you're showing the flag. I know you got a lot going on.
Wow. I mean, yeah, you guys really set the bar pretty high. I mean, I went around the US and I toured and saw a bunch of shows. My wife and daughter went to see Taylor Swift in Seattle. I stayed in the hotel room. I wasn't going into there. But yeah, you know what? We've had a pretty busy year. It's it doesn't feel like much, but we picked up a handful of rental properties with joint venture partners, so we're pretty happy about that. Market's really, really good right now, and though a lot of people are scared about the market, I think it's a huge opportunity. So we're in buy mode right now, kind of just like dabbling though. I don't want to. We got so much other stuff going on. Like we're in the process of building 2 new businesses, and that's taking up a lot of my time. So I'm trying not to take on too much and biting off more than I can chew. Also just trying to balance life, family. And we had a really nice summer, spending time with the little one. And just recently, not real estate related, but we're also looking at a partnership on potentially a restaurant. So,
Whoa.
Yeah. There's lots of little irons in the fire and stuff like that. So we're just lots of diligence, lots of research. lots of just meetings and potential partners and stuff. So it's been a super busy year. Nothing to like brag about, but I feel like any one of these days, just gonna like everything's just gonna fall. So it's been good.
A lot of little pieces add up to a big piece, though. Really.
Yeah.
Well, on my end, in my law practice, I've seen a number of amazing things go on, and the most amazing one was a deal that just closed in my office, where the seller was a distressed seller of a 24-suite apartment building, had tried to sell it, but the building is in kind of rough shape. Tenant profile is not that great. And he didn't have any luck selling it for the price that he wanted to sell it for. So he decided to do a little advertising and said that he would sell this apartment building and make it a 100% VTB deal. No money down. He'd carry it all at a reasonable interest rate. And he's telling me the story after he's found someone to step up, and I went, "Wow, you must have been inundated. My goodness, an apartment building, firstly, that always in big demand, and you're going to carry all the money, not even a penny of down payment." I said, "You probably realize that means you're going to have to write a check to your buyer for credits for rent and security deposits, depending on how it goes." Yep. Got I think 2 inquiries off whatever advertising he did. No, sorry, that's not right. He got a lot of inquiries, but only 2 people actually came along and tried to write an offer and tried to write a deal in the face of saying, "I'll carry it all." I said, "Why do you think that's true?" He said, "Well, because I'm carrying all the financing, I wanted to get the price I wanted. So a lot of people didn't like that. The building is rough. It needs some work. But in any event, Spire came along. They put together the contract mostly on their own, and it wasn't too bad a contract. And the buyer assigned that contract for, I can't remember the exact number, 40, 50, 60K, something like that. And he closed with the ultimate buyer. So I relay that to say to people who are interested in creative financing, who maybe haven't taken one of our courses, who might be interested, who wonder whether or not there are deals out there. So first one in my career where somebody's carried that amount of money on an apartment building. The buyer is going to put a bunch of money into it, fix it, improve the tenant profile, and refinance it. I think it's a 5-year term with a balloon payment. Don't even have to make a payment for a whole year. So, folks, if you're listening, you heard Dean talk about his 10-day, 100 grand plus turnaround deal. You heard Neil talk about somebody who's leaving 140K in a property. You heard Wayne talk about the market being really good right now, and you heard my story. So I think I just want to pound on this a little bit, that there are always deals out there. There are always deals out there, and not just okay deals, not just even pretty good deals. There are amazing deals out there where what you are doing when you get into those deals is you are helping somebody with a problem that they couldn't solve on their own. They might have tried, you might have tried to point them in different directions, but they couldn't do what they needed to do. And what they really needed was someone to come along and solve their problem. And that's what we do in the Creative Real Estate Group. So great illustrations of those. Absolutely stunning. So Wayne, let's go back to you. And we wanted to talk about observations of the market. So you're in Edmonton. People are watching all across Canada, and we're Alberta based. So we're talking more about the Alberta market. Neil's in Airdrie, Dean's in Calgary, Wayne's in Edmonton /Leduc. Tell us what makes you say the market is good, and what does that mean for investors, Wayne?
I think it's good because it changed. We've had the same kind of steady market for a while. I like change. I like when things are up in the air, when people are scared, because that creates opportunities, right? interest rates are very high, and the interest rate the expense to rent ratio is very bad right now. It's quite difficult to find properties that will cash flow with the standard 20% down. But that also means that there's good opportunities when people aren't buying. That's a good opportunity to get some really good deals, right? And so if you have got the guts for it, and if you're making sure you're doing your diligence and not over leveraging yourself too much, and making sure that you got some cash flow, there's a good opportunity to get some really, really good deals when everybody else is scared. And that's based off of the assumption that, interest rates should maybe level out to a reasonable interest rate in the near future. If not, then rents will definitely catch up. And we're constantly seeing rents going like this as well. So I think it's good. I think there's lots of different opportunities on the creative side. I mean, fill in the blanks. I mean, there's lots of sellers that are having troubles making their payments, right? It creates opportunities for agreements for sale. Lots of buyers that want to get into home ownership, but they can't quite right now. So rent to owns there's some opportunities in there too. So like I said, like when things change, it creates opportunities, and good creative investors recognize them, right?
Yeah. Neil, down Airdrie way and Calgary generally, I see reports that the rental market continues to be tight, that there continue to be more buyers than there are sellers. Is that just Airdrie? Is that Calgary generally? What's it like for you down in the south part of Alberta?
I'll leave Calgary for Dean, other than to steal a little of his thunder by saying they're probably very similar right now in that today I had lunch with a realtor friend of mine, and there is a 20-day supply of properties here in Airdrie. Roughly 100 and, from memory, 179, but call it 180, 178, 30-day rolling sales, 120 for sale in the market today. So that's 20 days, like less than a month of supply. Definitely a seller's market. So why would this lady even consider not taking that property to market? In her case, she was out of time, right? Yeah. The judicial listing was going to happen, and she was going to end up with a whole lot less money in her pocket by the time the extra interest piled up, by the time the realtor fees came out, by the time all that came out. And just to clarify, the 145, that's unpaid equity. So that's like owner equity that is left behind there. So she wanted 10. We've given her 10. She had about 155 in equity the way we figured it out, and that'll stay there. And our lift on that property, if it's worth 485, we'll be in it for about 440 after rental, maybe 445. So we'll pick up a little bit of money there. Not enough to have been able to flip it, but it's certainly enough to roll it into rent to own and that sort of thing. So sure. The market here is, as you get to a higher and higher price point, certainly it's going to get a little less frantic. Yeah. That said, when you're saying, hey, what's going on? I was trying to frantically write my notes on that. We had our flip house in Lake Twin Tree that we sold. We set a new record in there at, what did we get for that? 1.45 million. So it was a price and a per square foot record for the neighborhood there. And that was taking a house down to the foundation and reconstructing it, adding a story, leaving the detached garage the way it was. And wow. Again, for those of you who have heard me talk about it, what would have been an amazing home run still turned into a solid line drive, double maybe type of thing, because the timeline on that, it was basically, I think we were within 2 days of being 2 years on that one. But it shows you that even in that million plus market, and again, stealing thunder from Dean, that there is some movement in the market if you have good product and that sort of thing. Stuff that's overpriced sits. I'm seeing price reductions here in Airdrie, but again, if our average price now is pushed into, as a guess, into the mid fours, maybe to the 500,000. If you have a 775 property, I'm seeing reductions on those if people are stretching a little bit too much. And the enthusiasm that happened in the entry level, there were townhouses that a year ago were 325, and I saw some at 450, and they've fallen back a little bit in this last 30 days, maybe to 410, 415. But that's still a win for you. If you're a seller, you just made out like a bandit. This whole we've been waiting. We're Alberta. We've been waiting. Oh, right.
Here we go.
Boom. Yeah, it's time. And Wayne's, one thing you haven't said, Wayne, but typically if you follow the spikes and the drops here, Edmonton tends to lag 12 to 18 months behind the Calgary market. Right. If it shows up, because last time it didn't show up, right? But assuming it's there and your rents are going to push it there, it's going to push it. So when you're saying there's opportunities, that's one of the reasons why there are opportunities there. That whole, what was the stat on in-migration? Is it 40,000 people that moved to Alberta net in-migration? It's a big number.
Huge number. Well, Dean, do you have any thunder left, or has Neil Solon?
He's always got thunder left.
Oh, geez. Yeah, Calgary, especially that entry level, which it's funny to say anything that starts with a 6 now is our entry level detached house. I'm talking to realtors that are like, it's lineups out the door. These people are waiting, and they're encountering 10 plus offers on every property, etc. But Neil is right. Anything that's getting above that point, when you're getting into the 8s, the 9s, the $1 million, it's not flying off the shelf. It's people are taking their time. They're making sure that it's the right property for them. COVID taught a lot of people. We want to make sure that if something like that ever happens again, we love our house. We don't want to just make do, right?
Yeah.
But no, it's a strong market in Calgary. That's for sure. And we are also having, as Wayne had mentioned, issues with finding affordable rentals that will cash flow when you buy, right? So we're going to see what the government's going to do with that. I could see possibly, again, this is just my own guess, but I could see them extending amortizations again. Maybe we see a 35-year AM come back. Who knows?
Yeah.
But they have to do something for affordability.
They have to do something for affordability because there's only a certain number of inputs that you can jig for building. I mean, there's materials, there's labor, there's cost of land. I mean, it's going to take a major rework of how we do things in this country to make housing affordable. And that's a whole other issue. And sometimes maybe running afoul of what we all do, but nevertheless, there's a whole country full of people that need houses. And how many folks are we bringing in every year? Between 400,000 and 500,000?
It's a million in the last 12 months.
Million, wow.
Newcomers to the country. And
wow.
You talk about inputs, Barry. For those of you who don't, you should, by the way, folks. I'm going to highly recommend follow Christian Spilfogel, long-time successful real estate investor out of Ottawa. And Christian had a post the other day. It said, if we were to try and remove some of the administrative costs that are there to build housing these days, like new multifamily, essentially, you could take your cost these days for, and I'm going to just preface it with I think from memory, for a 1-bedroom to build is in that $1,700 to $1,800 rent is what it would require at today's rates and costing and all that stuff. And you've removed all that government cost and red tape. He says you could bring the rents down to $1,100, $1,200. And someone's going to put in the comments, well, Neil, you're out but I'm out by a factor. But it was certainly a significant amount in the reduction that was there, because you think about the timeline, how long it takes to get a permit, how long it takes to get a DP, then a BP, or if you're rezoning and all that stuff, your soft costs, your interest costs to carry, especially when you're talking, if you're building up in Edmonton, what's a redevelopment lot up there these days, Wayne? $500,000-$600,000?
Depends where.
Yeah, but where you want to be.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's pretty expensive.
Here, they're 6 and starting to push 7. I'm watching stuff that's within walking distance of SAIT, and it's up, gone, right? And that's the 50 by 100, 120 inner city lots. And again, we haven't even talked about that. The word on the street about CMHC and MLI Select, well, there was a rush of applications for the program because they bumped their fees this summer. So everyone tried to get in before that fee increase happened. So now instead of it taking 3 or 4 whiteboard, be careful of what you're going to give me. Instead of it taking 3 to 4 weeks for an application, we're hearing now 4, 5, 6 months, and they've added a whole bunch of, we won't do takeout finance for this, and you have to be on an approved list of lenders. So they're making the hoops that you need to jump to make this happen a little higher, but I still don't see it holding people back from building these 8 doors where there was one. So that's good for the country and the economy, and for the investor. Should be win-win-win when it comes to that.
The on the CMHC MLI Select program, for folks who hadn't seen some of our shows on that, I mean, that's a new CMHC program aimed at increasing affordable housing, increasing accessible housing. I think there was a third thing in there: affordable, accessible, energy efficient. And so to promote and provoke that, CMHC goes, well, if you tick all of these boxes, you can get various credits on our program. And what we'll do is we will extend the amortization periods. We'll perhaps lower some interest rates. If you do what we want you to do, we'll give you some benefits. And so there has been a lot of movement toward financing and refinancing with the MLI Select program. But Neil, you're quite right. I've had, I would say, 5 or 6 touches on that program, and none of them have gone particularly well. I've had people bail from their application because they were 4 or 5 months in and it just wasn't getting there. I've had people had to close with other financing because the 3 or 4 months they allowed for that being in place didn't happen. I've had people sign all of the CMHC MLI Select paperwork, and that's a foot thick stack of documents from a giant law firm, and have them, after doing that, say, well, you know what? They just changed a bunch of the rules. They for the loan to value ratio that they're giving us, they're now using a different calculation. We're going to end up with 55 or 60% of what we thought we were going to get. And I've had them bail at that point and go with a different private, more nimble lender to actually get a job done. And then they will refinance when they have plenty of time and nothing else pushing them. So I think a lot of problems have been showing up in the MLI Select program. And that takes me back to a couple of shows that we did with Garth Chapman and his sidekick. Why can't I remember his name? Neil Shopsowitz, I think it was. Neil, hope I'm not murdering your name if you're listening. In any event, if folks...
Producer Donna's taking notes going, hey, we're probably due to have another MLI Select update.
Yes. If you're going to get involved in it with the difficulties that people are having, if you don't have a Garth and a Neil on your side, you're going to run into trouble. So make sure you contact them if you're going to try and get involved in the MLI Select program, because it's conceptually and theoretically great, and I'm sure it has lots of great aspects, but practically speaking, a lot of folks are having a lot of trouble. So Garth Chapman, Neil Shopsowitz, if you're looking for that. Now, Dean, I want to go back to you because you talked a bit about the Calgary market. What end of things are you focusing on in Calgary? What pricing point and what strategies are you putting in place?
So my primary business, as you know, is flipping. So I'm not necessarily focusing on a certain price point. My goal through my marketing is just to help people. So if somebody comes to me and they've got a $300,000 condo and there's, a win-win there, then I'll do it. If somebody comes to me with a $700,000 infill, I mean, as long as the numbers work. So that's my day-to-day. I'm currently in the process of looking at some self-storage that we're going to be doing here, as long as all the numbers work. And so we're going to be kind of scaling a little bit into the commercial side. So So I do my day-to-day stuff, and then of course build on the wealth long-term stuff through the commercial developments that I have.
Interesting that all of us have started out, sort of a basic way of investing, but it's inevitable, and that other opportunities arise as you work your way through the creative strategies. So you're looking at the storage space. I mean, I read a little bit that even though there's been lots of storage places built, it's still to a large extent a mom and pop business, and there's a ton of room in storage strategy end of things to get into that. I mean, have you looked at it and said, listen, there's still plenty of room for a guy like me to learn his chops and get going? How did you come across that?
Well, first of all, it's a recession-proof business. I like a business that's going to be good when times are good and also good when times are bad, because that's one of the things that a lot of businesses, such as me being in the car business before, didn't have. So I like that aspect of it. But I've got a mentor that has done quite a bit of self-storage in his career. So he is thankfully allowing me to grab his coattails and drag me along, much like Neil has done in the past for a bunch of creative deals as well. And so I'm just in learning mode and moving forward with the help of wise people, I guess, wise advisors.
Yeah, always great to have a mentor who is good enough and nice enough to let you hold on to their coattails, because it is so instructive where someone gives you the benefit of what they've done and the mistakes they've made. And if you're smart enough to listen and not think you know it all, which I'm pretty sure you are, Dean, then you can avoid a lot of the learn it on your own process that we've all had to go through to some extent as we work on these creative strategies. All right, now I want to talk a little bit about comments. Hold on here. Sean, got a client in the MLI Select Ringer. Good description, Sean. The Ringer, closing October 23. CMHC is January 2024 for funding. Maybe. Exactly. Interim mortgage plus private to make up the difference on a down payment. Exactly, folks. There it is. So I'm pretty sure you all know Sean Impey is one of our ace mortgage brokers, and he's connected intimately to all of this stuff. So I'm sure Sean has seen this one and a few more, but this is kind of exactly what I was talking about, versions of what Sean's commented on. And so just, be very careful committing yourself to something that requires CMHC MLI Select. Even if you get a written commitment, there just seems to be delays and difficulties and changes, all of which are bad for you. So just be very careful and talk to Garth and Neil if you are actually going to do it. Any other comments there, Donna, before we move on? That's the one. Okay. That's the only one. All right. Interest rates. So we didn't get a rise last week. Yeah, it was last week. We had the governor saying, we're not raising it this week, but boy, you watch out. We still might. I know it's painful, but it's necessary. So Tiff Macklem, I think that's a great name. Hi, my name's Tiff Macklem. I run the country's money. He didn't raise rates. He certainly left himself lots of room to raise them again in the future. I've read material that says it takes about 18 months or so for interest rate rises to work their way into the economy and start to bite and have the effect that central banks want them to have, which is to slow down the economy and get some control of inflation. And I think we are right around the 18-month mark since rates started to rise. So let's talk about the effect that we see. Wayne, you mentioned it. I think you mentioned interest rates are giving heartburn for grabbing a property and having a mortgage payment component that is making it tough on finding positive cash flow. But where the heck is that Wayne? I was looking at the camera and he's gone on me. What a guy. We don't need you, Wayne. To hell with it.
I can jump in on that one, Barry. We did a refi. We had an agreement for sale on a townhouse that we had sold to a rent-to-own client, and turned out they wanted to upsize. So we bought that house back on agreement for sale from them and put them in another rent-to-own. They were ready to qualify for their new property. And unfortunately, what got missed in the mix, Murphy showed up with his suitcase and his law. Murphy's Law says, of course. And what nobody realized was that the existing mortgage wasn't going away. So like, boop. So, and we don't want to get in the way of someone qualifying, because if they're ready to qualify, you go, right? Let's go. Short version, we refinanced it. The appraisal was $400,000 based on market rents of $2,200 to $2,300. And unfortunately, when the appraisal comes in with $2,200 to $2,300, guess what the bank hears?
22.
Correct. Only the low number. So based on $2,200 market rent at the current rates in January, which were maybe a smidge less, but call it what they are today. Guess what our advance was?
Tell us. Hear this.
South of 200, 190, 191, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And that was using DCR, strictly debt coverage ratio. I think it was a 115, maybe a 1.1 even. And that's all we could get.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's an example of how that's biting.
I can second that as well. With my commercial building, we just got a 10-year lease on it. The bank required us to get a appraisal that they, from their list. It had to be somebody approved. So we had somebody come out, do an appraisal. They appraised our building at $2.1 million. And because of interest rates and debt service ratio, they said, well, unfortunately, we can only give you 1.05. So not even close to 70%.
No, nowhere near. You're 20% or so off that. My goodness.
Yeah. But it is what it is. So like Wayne said, if there's opportunities, when you're just, again, if you're trying to find, where do you find these deals, folks? Well, what did I do? Same as you've heard me say in the courses, I went to our local landlord group in the spring or summer, and I said, hey, if you're considering selling, if you have a rate renewal coming up, if you're tired of just tenants and toilets, and if your payments are going up on your mortgage because your 1.89 or 2.29 is now 6.5, we're looking. And so I had a landlord, he's got, I think 4. He contacted me and he said, I'm just getting out. And now's the right timing with that. And so we kept chatting and he named the price and we went, yep, there's equity there. So we already know we're going to have more cash to mortgage in that deal on the refinance. There's no creative. He doesn't want to do a vendor take back. He doesn't want to do agreement for sale. He just wants cleaning out. So be it. He only had about 90,000 mortgage left. So we'll still buy that because we need rent to own stock. We have the confidence that says the market's going to do what it's going to do. It's never 100% predictable, but we think there's enough margin in this deal that we're covered even if the market just does trim slightly for what, again, he looked at realtor fees. I think he had a realtor who maybe didn't take into account the lift in the market when they were helping him price it. So when he named that price, I made one phone call just to make sure. And I was like, done. When do we meet? We signed it private. And we'll take it somewhere between now and December. And the credit union has said to me, yeah, we'll finance that. We just don't know what the advance is. It's going to be based on, and they are at least willing to give me market rent. They used to say, if I don't have a lease, they won't give me a mortgage. They're willing to look at it to say they know where we're heading with that. And they'll use market rent and know that we'll have rent plus option credits on that. So that the debt coverage ratio, even if the current tenant stays, we've said you will not be sleeping in your car. That's not who we are. So even if we have to extend her by 30, 60, 90 days, she can go now. Or if we can transition her into one of our buy and hold rentals, we will. Or if she needs an extension just to get through Christmas, like, it's hard to find a place, then we'll help out. But the bank said, sure, we get that. Right now, she's paying $1,650 in rent.
Oh.
And we're in market rent's probably going to come in at least $2,100.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah.
Now, a couple of things coming out of that. So you work a lot with one of Alberta's credit unions, and credit unions are often more flexible than big lenders. So when you talked about them not needing to have a lease in place, is that part of your developed relationship with them, that they kind of know who you are and they allow a bit more flexibility because they know what you can do and how you perform? Or is that just kind of a one-off comment by them?
I can't answer that entirely. I know that certainly in the past, it's always been, we are a cash flow lender at the credit union. So you need to have a lease, and we're going to base it on that, right? If you have a property that you've just purchased and you're renovating it, right? So perhaps either there's a loosening in the strategy right now, or there's a track record thing happening. I'm not sure which. I didn't ask.
Yeah.
There's also an amalgamation about to happen. You've probably heard about that, right? Service and Connect First.
Oh, really?
That's correct. Yep.
Are joining.
Used to be, what was it before? First
Calgary?
Calgary. That's what it was
Yeah.
previously. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's an amalgamation happening there. We'll see what happens. But I mean, way back when, tell me if you've heard this one before. I've been told that if you're a local credit union, in the case of Service, they're not local, but if you don't get all of your monies invested, as in lent out, it then goes into the general pool. So that they definitely have a motivation to get some of this money lent out within parameters in their own network first, to make the profit at that level rather than have to give it up to the general type thing.
Yes.
So, I mean, we talk about relationship. We had a builder style mortgage given to us on our reno flips when they said, we really don't have that product, but we're willing to try it with you. And hey, quite frankly, we had one, they gave us a second one. And when we went, can't remember the timing, we either went for a third one and they said no, or we had gone down from 2 to 1 and we asked for a second one back and they said, we're going to hang in and wait to see what happens right now. So even some of their parameters, there was a while there where everyone was like pins and needles going, as a lender, going, we need to be conservative, right?
Yeah. Well, they are, and so much of it is relationships, especially in the smaller entities. I think the bigger lenders are far more, they have big books of policies, and the individual lenders don't have as much flexibility to do things. And the smaller entities like credit unions have a bit more flexibility, but then there's a lot that depends on them knowing who you are and you having a track record and having a really good person to assist you. Because if they're otherwise good at their job and good judges of character, and they don't have too many of their loans going bad, they have more ability to sway the credit committees in these smaller institutions to just kind of move the policies a little bit and help you out. So keep that.
Yeah, well, A, I don't think OFSI applies to credit unions, correct? So they have a little more flexibility around what their rules are.
Yeah.
And B, when I think about our relationship with this credit union, it goes back to Andrea found them in 2010?
Wow.
And we only got a new rep in the last year. We had
Wow.
the same fellow for 10, 12 years.
Yeah.
And the handoff that happened was from him to the lady that hired him. And she's been in that department longer than he has. Whereas I won't name the big bank that we have some of our commercial lending with. I'm on my, can't even tell you, 5th rep in 4 years, and they don't know who we are and they don't know anything. And, here's a good one. I think maybe you heard that I'm sure I've shared this. We phoned because we couldn't get a payout statement. So we finally emailed this guy. He sent a payout for the wrong mortgage last December. Oops. We're still digging out of that one at the legal level today, but
I'm
I think
sure
it's unresolved.
Gee whiz.
Yeah.
Oops. Well, Dean, I want to go over to you. Neil was talking about doing some advertising for folks who have a mortgage maturing with a small interest rate, and they look at renewals that are way up there. I mean, that is the what happens after rates have been up for 18 months or so. And there's a ton of people every year who buy mortgages, and so anybody who bought and put a mortgage on, a 5-year mortgage on, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, depends where they are in that cycle. A lot of people funneling into this time to renew, and it's a shocker. It's an absolute shocker when you see your renewal and what that payment might mean. Are you observing that, Dean, in your end of things? And is it enabling you to find more folks who are willing to talk because they can't take that interest rate pressure?
So I'll look at that two ways. So first of all, our mayor has basically declared a housing crisis. So they got some committee to go and do a bunch of surveying and stuff. And so currently in Calgary, as per this survey, 1 in 5 Calgarians can't afford their either mortgage or rent. That is what this survey came out. So 20% are in this situation where they're saying, yes, I have to choose between paying my rent and possibly, going out for dinner, or possibly getting the groceries I need, or whatever. That said, this most recent deal that I did that was involving a foreclosure, I ended up having to get Cass Limtot because he handles all of the foreclosures for Scotiabank. So I use him commercially, but he's usually far too busy to use for any of my residential stuff. And so he agreed to help me with this deal that was very complex. And so I was insider with him last week. And he hasn't really seen that many more foreclosures. So, and that's for a number of reasons. I mean, we've got prices going up. We've got short supply. So people, even if they are getting in trouble, they have the equity if they've still got, decent income to refinance and get over the hump, or they're just throwing it on the market. They're selling, downsizing to something else. So it's still a healthy market because of it being a seller's market. Yeah. What could change all of that is if it flips to a balanced or even a buyer's market, then we could see some real, some pressure, some real hurt, you could say.
Yeah. The rising tide has floated the boats here in Alberta. And I think it's even probably, we talked about this for the folks watching from Ontario or BC, sure, the values are off their peak numbers there, in not all markets, but some markets. But I think that if you have a maturing mortgage and you were in a traditional 5-year term, your value is up from 5 years ago. So they their equity went like this, and then they're still here, but they still can sell because now they can't afford the payments. It's unfortunate. That said, you're still seeing, opportunities in those markets. There are still distressed sellers now showing up in Ontario and BC, whereas before they would just list and sell. Yeah. So the opposite of the Ontario BC effect is here in Alberta, and the Alberta effect is creating some creative real estate buying opportunities, Ontario and BC.
Yes, and we continue to hear from students in other parts of the country other than Alberta who are finding that some of these creative strategies have led to, and their markets have led to creative buying opportunities, which is so wonderful because, for a long time, some strategies didn't work very well in other places for various reasons. So I'm glad that other parts of the country are having more of an ability to put these creative strategies into effect. So as we finish up here, it's something that we've observed, I think, over time, all of us in the courses we teach and in our individual businesses, is that there are always opportunities in the marketplace. The market can be roaring along, just going like a pistol. and you have opportunities, maybe, more on the rent to own side. The market can be falling and people are having difficulty. It leads to more opportunities on the agreement for sale side. But it's key for anybody listening to understand that there are always opportunities in the marketplace. Doesn't matter where you are in the country, doesn't matter where you are in the cycle, that there are always opportunities. And we talk at our courses a lot about this, that if you understand these creative strategies, you will recognize the opportunities. And that's what Dean and Neil and Wayne have been talking about today. They all have taken focus workshops. They've been at it, some of us for longer than we'd like to admit, but those rules still apply, that there are always opportunities. And if you understand those strategies, you will recognize those opportunities. Now, we have a deal in Facebook user. Deals are everywhere. Sometimes you just have to look different deals, and sometimes you look in different places. Isn't that so? That is really it. Really it. Donna, what are we doing next week? Donna had an idea for next week that she told me, but of course.
I was hoping to get some financial catch-up stuff going on.
Financial catch-ups for
Yeah.
next week? What do you mean by that?
Sean, Keaton,
Oh, right.
Garth,
Get the money boys in.
any of our money men.
Always good to hear about. Yeah, get Sean and Keaton Kirkwood, maybe Garth, in to talk about the financing side of things. Well, boys, that was very instructive. Congrats on doing what you do and having great deals and having fun as well. Dean, France, I got to go again. Neil, I know you always have fun. I don't even have to ask you for what that means in your life. So thanks, as always, for showing up, doing such a great job. I really appreciate it. It makes my job really easy. I just have to throw up balloons and you guys bash them into the stands. So thanks again, and we will sign off now. See everybody next week.
See you, everyone.
Night,
See ya.
everyone.